Hey there, we've got a little bit of a new look today. We're having some trouble with our other streaming application. Welcome to Coding at Home with the Code Hub. Uh, I'm Matt with the Code Hub, and what we're going to do is we're going to work through some of the building an app Aquarium stuff that we were working through last week. So let's go see if we can find our iPad here. All right, so this is where we left off last week. We were working through our aquarium on Thursday. We had a ton of work put into this already. We have some, I left some comments over the weekend, just little to-do notes. A lot of developers will do this. They'll leave a comment with a capitalized to-do with a colon after it. The nice thing is that when you use an interface development environment like Xcode, you can actually so those will show up especially in certain areas of the app. So it's kind of a handy feature developers will use to remind themselves to get some work done. We have our step counters. We have our styling of our components and adding them to the space. We have our random treasure function that we're not using anymore. We have our check for contact function. We have the game over label being shown, updating the step counter. And then our one move left function. Hopefully you've written more than just a move left function. Hopefully you've written some move right, move up, move down functions and added those buttons. We have an as balloon, so when we press on the whale, it'll grow and shrink. And we have some other notes in here. Let's see. So check for collisions. We have a note here about adding an array for other fish. Because now when we hit this yellow button, we have, well, they're not quite fish, but they're ducks that get added to our aquarium. So the very first thing we're going to walk through today, because we did a lot last week, is a really handy function for refactoring our code. So this is okay, what we have here. It's a little bit messy. I think I'd spend a couple of days maybe refactoring it, reorganizing it so that it looks a little bit neater. Swift Playgrounds actually has some really nice tools to let you refactor your code. So if I go tap on this property here, add fish, I don't like this name because I also have a function down here called add fish that we saw on Thursday. And our autocomplete actually got a little bit confused. Now, it didn't harm us in any way, but it got a little confused because it saw a symbol named add fish. And it was actually this property, not our function name. So what I want to do is I want to be very clear that this add fish property is a button, not just add fish. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tap on add fish. You can see it turns blue and I get a few other extra options here in my contextual menu. And one of them is rename. So if I hit rename, I'm going to call it add fish button. And now, if I had done this by hand without using that rename contextual menu item, I would have had to go find all the other places where I used that add fish button and change the name to add fish button. But what that did when I hit that button was it went down here and it said, oh, I know that this is a reference to add fish and I got to change it to add fish button now. When I add it to the space, I've changed the name there. Let's see, where else did we change it? Not in game over, not in move left. Down here, my add fish function, you'll see stayed the same because that wasn't a reference to the property. And where I wired it up, where I wired up the pressed property of my add fish button, it also changed the name to add fish button. This is really handy. If you say later, I'm getting super confused with these variable names and I want to rename one, go up to where you've defined it. So say fish 1, 2, actually fish 2 isn't even a fish, really, it's a whale. So I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to change fish 2 to whale. And then we're good to go. Down here, we can see that whale, whoops. Down here, we can see that whale.image equals the whale. When we add our fish, former fish2 to the space, we've changed that property reference to whale. Really handy, especially as you're developing your app and you don't want your spaceship app that started out as an aquarium to have all sorts of references to fish, because when you come back to that later, or if someone else comes to that code, they're going to be super confused as to why your spaceship property is called fish, for example. So now that I've done this to do, I'm actually going to get rid of this comment because it doesn't apply anymore. I've renamed it. Fish 1 is fine. Fishes, actually, I'm going to do the same thing with fishes, and I'm going to rename it ducks. Because I'm planning on keeping ducks in that array. And now I haven't actually used that anywhere else yet. Or have I? If I go down to my add fish, you can see that, ooh, actually, I do. I use it here, ducks.append fish. So actually, I'm going to change this property name here to duck. And you can see as I type du, it's changing the other references to that property. This is a really nice feature of Swift Playgrounds that you should definitely take advantage of when you're rearranging your code to make a bit more sense to yourself. And I'm also going to rename add fish. Oops. So we're going to just delete that. We're going to say add duck. Now, I didn't use a rename button because I didn't have that option. So now I've got an error down here. And it says use of unresolved identifier add fish. So, well, I've got it's called add duck now. So I need to change that to add duck. I'll use the same style I used here for press whale. So I said add duck and then the parentheses, pulse, colon, and then close parentheses. So now if I run my code, even after all those changes, my ducks still get added. My whale still presses appropriately when I hit left. My fish still moves. My treasure gets added. I'm looking pretty good. All right, so let's do one last thing. So we have an array of ducks. That's interesting, but we aren't using them yet. They're just they're sitting there. We have an array that we're not doing anything with. So let's do this. Let's create a new function, and we're gonna loop through our ducks. When we press a new button, we'll create a few ducks. We'll press a button and then loop through the array and move them all to roughly the same area. So we'll have them kind of cluster in a certain area. Maybe somebody threw some bread in the water. All right, so what we'll do is we're gonna, to start adding this feature, we wanna add a button that'll gather the ducks. So we have our yellow one that adds the fish, or that adds the duck. Let's go back up here to our components. I wanna add a new button first off. So let's do that. So I'm going to add it after the add fish button because I'm trying to keep these ones all together. My left button is sort of an action button that I can press and interact with. My add fish button, same thing. I press it to create new items. These ones are sort of elements on the screen. The step label, whale, fish one, and well, ducks isn't a component, but it's going to hold an array of components. So I'll create my other button here. So let's see. We'll call this one. Maybe let's pretend we're throwing, we let people throw bread out onto the scene here. So actually what we'll do is we'll call it get bread button, because get bread sounds like a function, doesn't it? So we'll make this a button. And autocomplete, we have to create an instance of a button. So we have our get bread button. We're going to go down here and style it a bit. So you see for our add fish button, we just changed the background color. We kind of took a shortcut there. Let's add a get bread button. Let's give this a full title this time. Title, and we're going to give it the title. Call it bread. All right, maybe we'll give the get bread button a border. We'll make the border color, let's see, we'll make it, I guess we'll make it kind of pink. We'll give that a width because otherwise we won't see anything. So dot border width equals 4. Cool. All right. Now that's not going to show up on the screen. We know this at this stage because you guys are veteran app developers, haven't done it for a week in this playground. We're going to add it to the space. And tell you what, let's add it over. So we'll do space. Dot comes up. Dot add. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to add this get bread button. And the point we're going to add it at will be above, just like we did with the add fish button. We went and looked and said, okay, we want to put it above our left button. Let's put this one above our add fish button. So we're going to get a point right at the front of the autocomplete. Use X and Y, and we'll say, so it was, this was about 100 up from the other one. That's 300. Okay, so we'll do 300 on the X-axis because that'll be the same. And then we'll go up to maybe 450.